Hello, one and all, and welcome to episode 64 of Opposite Field Bleeding Your Colors' baseball podcast. And if you haven't found out from the title or the background, we're going to be talking about a certain player this evening for the most part. Uh, First and foremost, my name is Trevor. That is Colin. How you doing tonight, brother?
Doing good. Doing good. How about you?
Ah, doing a lot better. Yes, do not adjust your calendars. This is not Thursday. We're doing this on a Friday. I had to keep myself from falling asleep on several occasions on the podcast I recorded last night, and did not want to give Colin a zombie version of myself at the time that we normally record. But we're not missing out on the main story of this week in baseball, and that is the debut of Pittsburgh pitcher Paul Skenes. And my poor screen just took a lot of spit on it, saying that many P's in a row. But that's something I probably could have left out. But no, this is a full disclosure podcast.
This is Friday night.
Yeah, it's
You know what you
Friday
get on
night,
Friday.
and I have to get all the stress out of my system for dealing with the Knicks in about an hour, because I'm just going to watch the second half, because the first half, what's the point at this stage of the game with the NBA playoffs? But nevertheless, Paul Skenes is going to be making his much-awaited Major League debut, the only pitcher in the top 20 of MLB.com's prospect rankings, and last year's number one pick, will take the mound against the Cubs in a very juicy matchup. And it's a game that everybody will be able to see free through MLB.tv, and I believe also on the website, which I think is a rare win for Major League Baseball in, marketing one of their up-and-coming stars.
Yeah, I don't think that there's been this much attention on a pitcher's debut in Strasburg.
Yeah, and oddly
enough, ironically, I think faced the Pirates his Major League debut.
Well,
if I remember correctly.
There is a decent chance I can find that out right now. It was in the June of 2010. So as time goes along, I will go verify that one way or another. But the thing with Skenes coming up, and it's something that we've talked about a lot of times through the years, is and especially with the pitcher injury epidemic, so to speak, that we've dealt with a lot in the sport, especially this season, is the whole service time manipulation isn't as big of a thing as it used to be. There's you got Wyatt Langford and Jackson Holliday, even though Holliday got sent back down. You got the position players coming up sooner and sooner and getting those extensions and just getting the ball rolling on their careers, whereas the pitchers have been a lot of times kept down on the farm. And that's the thing that kills me, is they're getting their first like Tommy John surgeries in Double and Triple A instead of these guys like Skenes, who are probably ready. And let's be fair, it's a guy that hits 102 very regularly. It's not out of the realm of possibility that we're going to be talking about his Tommy John in a couple of years. But do you agree or disagree that keeping it should be more flip-flopped? There should be more seasoning for these young hitters, whereas these pitchers that could have a chance to make an impact should be coming up earlier.
I agree. I just think that maybe teams ought to be aware, I think the word would be, about the fact that Tommy John is in the near future. I mean, look, we finally see it with Ohtani. Although I don't. Is Otani gonna have? He's not gonna have Tommy John surgery, right?
I think he did, and that's why he's only hitting.
Okay. Did he?
And I think Strider did, and
So I,
Bieber. Yeah,
it,
so all these, yeah.
the Tommy John thing. I think that back in 20 years ago, I think Tommy John was a frightening word for a lot of fans
Yeah.
because it's like, oh, our star pitchers are going to be out for a season and a half. But now it's become more common, and it's kind of been proven statistically. Pitchers come back better after Tommy John than before. But with skiing, I think that it's one of those things where I think it might have been more beneficial for him to have it before he got called up. What do you think?
Yeah, there comes the thing of, do you just wait for his arm to fall off down the minors? I don't know if it's something that these teams may be using as a preemptive strike at this point. I don't have the answers, but it is something now that, yeah, like you said, it used to be the boogeyman where
Yeah,
these guys would put it off for so long because they knew the turnaround time was they were going to lose a year of their careers, and then that would be over. But now it almost kind of extends. Look what Justin Verlander and these guys that are pitching into their late 30s and early 40s now that have all had this surgery, and they've come back with the similar or increased velocity after the fact. And I don't, yeah, it's not a death sentence anymore. Yeah, maybe when you're on like your third one, you should probably
but don't, but
think
don't,
about
but
it.
don't you think that 20 years ago, um, it was sold to us, the fans, like it was a death sentence?
Yeah, they made it seem like it was a last resort instead of
Devastating. And they
instead
made
of
it seem like it was devastating.
instead of what it's now viewed as maintenance.
I mean, and just to
Yeah,
people, watching and listening to us, go look at some of these guys who had great careers before Tommy John surgery and their careers after. It either doesn't change or it's better. It's never worse.
yeah, and there's the exceptions of guys that will end up in different situations,
Yeah, of
and they'll
course,
try to
of
make
course.
that correlation of like, oh, when he got in Tom and John, but well, then he got traded to a bandbox.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's gonna be cases for everything where you don't uh you try to just fit your argument with the circumstances at hand.
but before we even talk about that, let's talk about how big of a deal this is for the Pirates, and maybe how big of a deal it is for baseball this season.
Yeah, my biggest thing about this, because we've talked about the Pirates a couple times now,
Hmm.
both in the light at the end of the tunnel episode and the surprise of teams that have given you reason to have hope
Yeah.
that didn't really give you much of that in the past couple of years, and they're a team that has really started off. They're not like setting the world on fire like uh, there was a chance that people thought they were going to do, but they have a good young core, and with Jones, they got another guy that you could have a 1-2 in your rotation for like the next 7 to 8 years. Granted, if they are able to lock them up and keep them and not turn them into trade chips, like I think we're going to talk about in a second.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing for these franchises to take advantage of their draft capital, because you look at it in a lot of ways where baseball and hockey, I think, are the two drafts that are neglected the least in the general sports landscape,
Oh
because
yeah. Not
the
enough. There's not high. It's not made a spectacle like the NFL or the NBA draft.
yeah, and a lot of times it's because even the most like ardent baseball fans don't really know anybody outside of like the top 5 of the baseball, because you'll see these guys in the College World Series, and then they will get hyped up. And if they are somebody that's going to go in the top 5, the commentators and the talking heads in the baseball community will let you know at every turn that this is a guy that is going to be in the top 5 of the draft. And for this one, like Skenes and Cruz were 2 guys that everybody knew about come the draft process, even if they didn't have a full grasp of what they did well.
I also believe that the minor league baseball, like as its own entity, is kind of a bigger. It can be a bigger deal than like the you know minor league NBA team. Like I think that like because okay, I guess what I'm trying to say is the NFL it's got a practice squad and it's got the NFL. There is no minor league development uh, situation for these players.
As much as they want the UFL to be that,
Exactly.
they will shoot their foot with that.
The NBA has one, but like, unless you know about it, it goes under the radar. Where you and I could get tickets to a minor league game today and view these players as if we're watching a major league game. So you know what I mean. But what I'm trying to say is, I think that's why the draft is so underappreciated because you know we could go to a minor league game, see guys that were drafted by major league teams, and just treat them as major league players for that minor league team. If that makes sense.
It does, because the minors have to be filled out,
Mm-hmm.
and there's going to be a lot of players there that are low round draft picks, and they're going to be career minor leaguers.
Yeah.
And that's no slight on them.
No.
They play the game of to get even to the minor leagues. You have to play the game of baseball better than I will probably do anything in my life.
Yeah.
And that's when, and it's an argument I've had with people all the times when I call a guy a bum, or or in this case, I'm calling a guy like a career minor leaguer, I'm going in the context of his peers.
Yes.
I am not saying I am better than any of these players.
And there are 4, if you think about it, there are 5 or 4 steps in minor league system. So there's, there's just A ball, there's double A ball, there's triple A ball. And if you can even make it to double A, you might be on your way to the big league or the show, where in basketball, sometimes if you make the minor league team, it's not always the case that you're going to be called up where it is in hockey and baseball.
Yeah, and that's why the top of the draft, and you got guys like Skenes that go in and they face these lineups. You have to really hyper focus on specific matchups with specific players that are going to be up in the show with him in the near future, because it's his numbers down there are incredible.
I'm gonna read you his numbers because I pulled them up.
Yeah.
Okay, because they are. I mean,
this is for this year at AAA in Indianapolis.
Yes, and this year, Skenes' numbers right now are he's pitched for 7 games. He does not have a win-loss record, so that's based on the fact of however their minor league team does.
And there's also he has a couple of short starts.
Right. So in 27.1 innings, he has 45 strikeouts, a whip of .91, which is incredible, and a ERA of .99. And if you think that's like oh, he's just having a good season so far. His career, he has a career ERA of .185, which is under 2, which is better than a lot of minor league pitchers.
And yeah, it's something where there's, and granted, you can say this about a lot of guys in love. He's kind of just outgrown the minors.
Minor leagues, yeah.
Well,
that brings me to my
yeah.
I think the question in terms of stats, because you and I are gonna have a bigger discussion about what the Pirates should do, but is this the next Garrett Cole for the Pittsburgh Pirates? I think it is.
And I agree with you. I think this is a guy that can anchor this rotation for God knows how long. And that will be another topic of discussion in terms of that, because with the Pirates, you always have to have that discussion, unfortunately. Yeah, he's a guy, him and Jared Jones, I go, like, you could make that a 1-2 for as long as they stay healthy.
And you saw Mitch Keller in that number 3 hole. You're fine.
A guy who has had to be by default be their one.
Yeah, you're fine. Yeah. You hide Mitch Keller in 3 and 4, you're gonna be just fine.
Yeah, it's something that in a division that is incredibly winnable in a lot of fronts, that you can make something of yourself if you're not going to be able to kind of construct your roster appropriately. Otherwise, you'll be able to go and just know that you every 2 out of 5 days you got a chance to really just shut down all these lineups, because you got 2 guys that can just throw gas.
And you know what? That brings me to my next topic for you. So, for those of you who don't know, Trevor's obviously a bigger NL fan, and I'm a bigger AL fan for various reasons. But Mitch Keller, I think, has been mediocre this season, I think, at best. So did Paul Skenes have the stuff to be able to face the Dodgers, to be able to face the Padres, to be able to face the Phillies and the Braves and the Brewers? I think he might.
If we're going to just get into a conversation about stuff,
I think we have to. I mean,
because it's disgusting because for so long.
Because what I think, and maybe you'll disagree, and maybe you'll agree. I think that top to bottom, 1 to 9, the Los Angeles Dodgers have the best lineup in baseball.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Braves second, Yankees third.
I'd say there's debate for third, but I'd say, yeah, those top 2 are pretty locked in my eyes.
Okay. Could he go to Dodger Stadium and shut them down?
I think this year he's not going to get a full-fledged opportunity to do so.
Okay.
But when you have a
what if they're in a pennant race, though?
Well, I'm gonna say is if you have a guy who has thrown more pitches over 100 miles an hour than the rest of AAA combined, you got a decent chance to shut down a lot of good teams. And that's my big thing with him, is that he's just, and I'm glad that you brought up Strasburg before, because he's the guy that's obviously the phenom that was drafted number 1.
Most attention probably in a long time.
And you got the guys that you brought up, Garrett Cole, him and the 2 UCLA guys, Garrett Cole and the Voldemort Trevor Bauer, who were taken with very high regard in that time. This is a guy that doesn't have the same mechanical flaws as them. He throws 102 and it looks easy. He throws like a 91 mile an hour splitter that doesn't look any different. His
No.
changeup makes me want to. If I was a hitter and he threw a changeup inside of me, I would legitimately piss and shit myself at the same time.
I think that
It's
I
just
think
disgusting.
I think that he is in the best possible division to start his career. And what I mean by that is I think that today there's not enough of a threat in the ML Central to for him to be exposed.
Yeah, because you have a young Reds team that has a lot
Which
of
which I'm kind of jumping on board with you about. They're a fun team to watch.
yeah, but they also have a lot of guys who are very
Yeah,
jumpy at the plate,
they
which
are.
is going to make things a lot easier for him. Lots of high strike chasers. We'll put that on the end of the spectrum. You have a lot of let's just say older heads in Milwaukee who are trying to hang on for that last little bit of glory.
I would say that's the same kind of situation in St. Louis.
Yeah, because while Cincinnati's youth movement is going pretty well, St. Louis's is not.
Good,
Their
good,
top prospects are kind of
good.
not not coming good so far, and I think Wilson Contreras getting hurt is going to really,
That was
that's really going to mess with that pitching, and the way he got hurt was kind of rough.
it was brutal.
Yeah, but
But that leaves his debut team, the Chicago Cubs, my pick for the NL Central winners.
but from there, I don't, and this is, I don't know, maybe a bit of hubris or anything. I don't see much in the way of something to be afraid of with the Cubs. Yeah, they're probably gonna either be first or second in that division, while teams are getting things together. But I don't. I just, yeah. This could be that shift in everything, because
I mean, if
there's
he goes out there tomorrow afternoon and strikes out 10, gives up 3 hits, Pirates win. I think that's a momentum changer.
but also in the same regard, if he goes out there and gets bombed,
Yeah.
it's incumbent on Pittsburgh not to panic, because
Yes.
look what happened with Yamamoto in
In
Korea.
LA. Yeah.
He went out and he got absolutely shellacked, and everybody was going, "Oh God, they spent $325 million
Yeah.
on this kid. He's a
Yeah.
bum."
Go look
Blah,
at his
blah, blah.
go
And
look
look
at
what
his
he's doing.
number now.
Yeah, and this is something where and we're going to talk about it shortly, that I'm scared of Pittsburgh being reactionary, because they've done it so many times where they go to a limit with one of these prospects and go, well, we're only going to win 79 games this year. Well, going to just trade all these guys.
Which can you imagine if he was on Baltimore right now?
It
It would
it'd
be
be
over. Like that. I guess the reason I'm saying that is what you're kind of harping on. What you're saying is the Pirates organization, they they can't wave white flags just because their team is bad. They have to figure it out.
Yeah, and
It can't be a farm system.
no, and speaking of farm systems, we are always farming for comments, and Ryan
Yeah,
chimes in once the Rays trade for him, and then they instantly trade him again after one season, because they have the same business model. And Noah's World comes in with his pick is for the Mets to win it all.
That won't happen. Sorry, Noah.
I hope for the sake of your sanity and most of my friends, they at least get into the playoffs and give you a shout to do so. But yeah, I'm not holding out hope for that. The other one is that not only is Christian Scott better, Christian Scott is way better. And we'll see when Christian Scott makes their debut if they have an entire takeover of MLB.com. We'll be waiting with bated breath for that day. And if we are proven wrong, we'll make sure you are shouted out first and foremost for being at the apex of the knowledge curve. Now, let's talk about the ugliest part of this, which we've alluded to a bunch of times, and that not being the potential injuries down the road for these young pitchers, because as you can see from just the way that prospects are ranked now, that there's just not as much emphasis put on pitchers as much as it used to be, where there was always in the top 50 prospects, there was just a litany of pitchers, and then you kind of had like the upper echelon at each position of the hitters kind of make their way into that spot. Whereas now there's just such a overgrowth of hitting talent in everywhere, from the catcher spot to the outfield. There's just so many guys that are highly touted that I think pitching has kind of taken a back seat. And you can talk about the whole way it's been minimized in the sport, but I think more than anything, it's come from a place where the pitcher has become the most and least valuable asset for a lot of teams. And what I mean by that is, whenever there's trade talks that come on, you always are looking for pitching, and these teams now will hold their star pitchers in a high regard in what they're asking for, but it's almost as if they just don't care about trading their star pitchers anymore. There's so many more star pitchers on the move that you just go, how does this keep happening? And I'm fearful that we're having this conversation in 2 years about how the Pirates have gone, oh, well, we've sat here and we've tried to do our process, and what's come of it? Oh, you're going to trade us 5 prospects for Paul Skenes? Okay. Yeah.
Well, I think that one of the big things is that I think it's an epidemic in baseball where they're trying to stay relevant, like in the NFL and like the NBA. And what I mean by that is, if you can get a guy that hits 40 home runs, that will bring more viewers in than a pitcher that can strike out 13 guys. So the focus is trying to get flashier guys that can just hit bombs than trying to get players that make the sport better as a whole. So for the Pirates, I think that one of the things that they're going to try to do is build a team around Paul that they can't necessarily contain in a few years, because they're just not going to be able to pay people. And I would hate to see somebody walk or him get traded instead of building a team like Baltimore has because they're trying to adapt, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because baseball more than anything is very much a copycat sport, and there's going to be teams that are going to try to employ as we did a whole thing on with the so-called Baltimore model of building through the draft, bottoming out, and really trying to just hit on as many picks as you can, stack your roster together. Hopefully that generates enough buzz and enough just revenue to be able to pay at least the vast majority of them.
Yeah.
I just, and it's one of those instances where I want to be proven wrong. I want Pittsburgh to have these pitchers in this bullpen, and they have a lot of good young hitters that it's granted it's something where I think it's going to take some time to gel because they're not all doing that great right now.
No, but maybe you could.
By that great, I mean they have one guy hitting over 250.
But like, yeah, but like maybe you could build. Okay, let's say that he goes out tomorrow and he has the kind of game that he's hyped up to have. Okay, I think that you need to look at this team and build around two players, and they're on opposite sides of the field. You build around him and the rotation and the bullpen, and you build around O'Neal Cruz and your lineup. And those are the guys that are going to take this franchise to the next level. But if you just start stacking guys that are done with their career or guys that would not be anywhere near a big league in any other franchise, or you build a rotation around Paul Skenes that is not on par with what he's capable of, it's going to go south real fast.
Yeah, and as much as these small market teams want to cry poverty, they have these opportunities now when they're bringing these kids up young to just slap down that initial extension, buy out those arbitration years.
Yep.
And yeah, you're going to take a bit of a hit when it comes to the payments up front. But if this guy turns out to be the stud that everybody thinks that he's going to be, you're saving yourself money down the road, and you're building goodwill with both your players and your fans. You're going, hey, we have this guy that everybody is on board with being a frontline starter. He throws 102 for fun. He is just a very affable person. He doesn't come off as an asshole. He's a guy that you could send out to do all the media. He's really somebody that you could market. And I know marketing is a absolutely filthy word when it comes to Major League Baseball. He's a guy that you could put on all your programs. You could do. My big thing is if they, and this is kind of like looking back through sliding doors. If they knew this was the date that he was going to come up, you should have made it like Paul Skenes shirt night.
Yeah.
Or Paul Skenes bobblehead night.
Yeah.
And yeah, if this is something that kind of came up and doing that, there was going to be, I don't know.
But these guys know. They know.
Things of like subterfuge or anything like that. But yeah, if you're a decent.
But they know. They know when they're going to call him up. You know? Like,
yeah.
How hard is it for a publicist or, someone in the organization to just throw a night together for him?
Yeah, and maybe we'll see that down the road, but this would have been a perfect opportunity because you've seen MLB.com for like the past 2 days. It's just all Skenes all the time, and he's a guy that has people that aren't normally talking about baseball, which was what this sport needs more than anything.
Yes.
and to have it be for a good story and a good guy that can come in and really just electrify things, I think is huge.
And you know what?
Yeah,
We talked about Strasburg. If you remember correctly, the National weren't that good when they bought him up, and it was an event when they bought him up, but they stuck with him, and Strasburg won a World Series with the team he got called up with. So you know, I'm not saying
yeah,
Pirates are going to go out and win the World Series, but use that momentum that Washington had as a model for your team.
yeah. And this is it. You go back to Tampa, how they just
Yeah,
drafted their way into the World Series, and they were even using David Price out of the pen, and that's a big thing. There was guys that were getting drafted. I think the two that come to mind most are like Garrett Crochet from the White Sox, and like I think Brandon Finnegan. I think that's the Finnegan that was drafted by Kansas City, and they were both up in playoff games. Like
yeah,
I'm fairly certain Brandon Finnegan pitched in the World Series the year that the Royals went, but it's something that you can get your people inside. And another valid point from the comment section. You look at, and we go back to the monkey see, monkey do. The Braves have pretty much everybody that's under 31 on their roster under contract for like the next 6 years.
yeah, yeah.
And they, so that's why they're not going anywhere. And they
And
can kind of
you,
just go fill the gaps.
I remember when, um, different situation, but when Evan Longoria was called up for the Rays, and he started his career, and he got off to a hot start, and right away they locked him up to a 9-year contract. Like, these are the things you have to do, Pirates, if you want to try to build around your future star. And if Baltimore wins the World Series this year, I think that should be a model for every uh, quote unquote poor team throughout the league.
Yeah, because you're always going to have the haves, and I root for one of them. And it's there's only so much you can do to for your fans more than anything, instead of just sitting there going, well, we're just the old lowly. And I think this is a conversation we'll have probably in a couple weeks about of the Marlins, where it's like
Yeah,
nobody comes to our thing, and we did all this, and then nothing happens. And it's like the guy with the stick poking the thing,
yeah,
going, just do something. That sometimes you have to be the catalyst.
yeah,
And
yep,
when the Pirates are following suit, yeah, they whiffed on Henry Davis. He's a guy that doesn't seem to really be ready or look comfortable on the major league level. So yeah,
yeah,
you whiffed on that, but you are starting to develop a pitching pipeline, because if you look at Pittsburgh's like top 20 prospects, a lot of them, a lot of them are pitchers, and a
yeah.
lot of them are very highly touted.
And you need
These
that.
guys are coming up through the system quick.
Yeah, and you need that. And baseball is not what it was 20 years ago. The Yankees are no longer the threat to Major League Baseball. Because you look at it today, it's honestly, it's your team. It's the Dodgers. They're the threat to Major League Baseball. However, I think you'd be the first to say the Dodgers have issues where, like, people didn't think. And so what I mean by that is there are openings there for teams. Don't give up.
You got to consistently be poised to strike.
Yeah. Yep. And that's what Baltimore did. Baltimore, we highlighted it last week. Baltimore started 46 wins 4 years ago. And now they are next to the Dodgers to win the World Series as a pick.
Yeah,
Who would have thought you and I 2 years ago were like the Texas Rangers spent all of its money and they lost 100 games, and then they won the World Series last year.
They've done it kind of through a mix. They've drafted real well, and then
And they spent.
they went and hit on their two real big free agent acquisitions.
This isn't
Seager was yeah.
This isn't the old baseball. This isn't the Red Sox, Yankees, whoever else throw in there that are like, oh, here we go again. The Yankees are just gonna win the World Series. It's completely different. You know, I would never have thought 10 years ago that the Houston Astros were going to be a dynasty, but they are.
And granted,
And
they're at the bottom of the league right now, where they should be.
And they're at the bottom of the league, but like,
rubs.
But guess what? The other team in Texas could be a dynasty.
Yeah.
You know?
And I'd like to just thank for this little reality check that I didn't know that my team won 100 games and got knocked out in the first round last year.
Look,
yeah,
I'm gonna be real honest with you. The only team that I see as a threat to the Dodgers this season is the Philadelphia Phillies. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's how I feel in the NL.
I still think you have to look at Atlanta as a viable contender. They fell into the same pitfalls as the Dodgers last year. Yeah. That layoff after the wild card, which is something that if you really cared about the sport, giving a team a week off when they've had no more than 3 days off all year, it's a game of habit.
Yeah.
And if our lovely commissioner had ever watched a game for more than an inning and a half in his life, he'd probably fucking know that. But nevertheless, it's my thing with Skenes and as the Pittsburghs of the world in general, the woes me act is old.
It's over.
Yeah, there's something where you have to find your unique way to compete. And if you can just convince your fans that trust our scouting department, if we bottom out for 2 years and we hit on 4 of our top 6 picks in the draft, and we get guys that are in the upper echelon of the college sport, and we can get them in here and they can test their mettle for a year, and then we get them up to the show in this division, we could be doing what Baltimore's doing in 2 years. Because St. Louis I think is going to fall off a cliff. Cincinnati is going to be there, but it's something where it's not necessarily Colorado-ish where you can't get anybody that's going to be able to pitch there, but you're going to have a lot of guys at the back end of your rotation that are giving up 25 home runs in that stadium.
Yeah.
So you got to get enough offense to offset just how many balls you're going to see leave the park off the bats of opposing hitters. And then you got Chicago and Milwaukee that are kind of old in their own right.
And I think that if we want to put a nail in the coffin for the stop with the woe with me, look at the 4 teams that used to say that are in the mix. Arizona went to the World Series last year, right? When's the last time you thought about Arizona before that? You know, my pick for the AL Central, Kansas City Royals. They could still win that division. Obviously, the cream of the crop of this kind of debate, the Baltimore Orioles, Texas Rangers, another one of their teams, and I'll even throw in your Cincinnati Reds if they can get something going.
Yeah, the fact that they're on a pretty rough losing streak right now has taken a bit of the wind out of their sails. They were in second place before they lost 8 in a row, which is good. but it's one of those long season things where they're a team that could easily go and win 8 games in a row.
But we've been talking about these. We talked last week about the Minnesota Twins. They were at one point they were winning 10 games in a row. It's only May. It's a long season. A lot of baseball to be played. You know?
And that's why I think the fact that Pittsburgh is not waiting until the middle of July, early August to pull the trigger on Skenes.
They see an opportunity.
Yeah, they see there's a bit of chum in the water, and then they need to kind of just
strike.
Yeah.
Strike while the iron's hot. And I think we should clarify, we are not saying that this call-up is going to push the Pirates to the playoffs. What we're saying is it's going to give them momentum to make a bid for the playoffs.
It's a positive indicator.
Yes.
It's something to show both their fan base and the general baseball community that we're not just going to sit here on our hands with a guy that could be a generational talent, and you're going to just be like, okay, enjoy watching him play for 2 years in Indianapolis, and he strikes out 2 players an inning, and then we call him up when we're 14-31. And
I think the hype around him, it would be like, this is going to be a weird comparison, but maybe you'll get it. It would be like if Kansas City Chiefs sat Patrick Mahomes for 5 years. And they drafted him and they never played him. You know what I mean? That's why they should call him up now.
And it's, and with the football comparison with a quarterback more than anything, there always is that temptation for, and speaking of the number 1 pick, they just announced that Caleb Williams is going to be the opening day starter.
Yes.
And that comes with the expectations nowadays with being like the number 1 pick. Whereas with baseball, there was always that kind of air of mystery of, all right, he got picked number 1 and we know where he's going, but when will we see him?
Yes.
And there's always that pessimism when it comes, especially with small market teams. And this was something back in the old SoundCloud days that we used to shit on the Mariners for all the time, because they would come out and basically tell you, we have 3 people in the farm that could help our team now, but we are too cheap to do anything about it. And we're just kind of wait till the boat has got enough holes in it where no amount of repairs is going to keep it from sinking.
And I think that calling up a generational talent, as you say, in a 40-win season is not it doesn't. So what are you doing? You're just showcasing him. You know what I mean? You're running him out there for a bad baseball team so that he could potentially lose 2-1 games instead of trying to throw him in the middle of the race and hoping he can do something.
Yeah, and making a comparison to Jack Leiter and how rough his time with the Rangers was, and I think it goes back to what we were saying more about Yamamoto, where the Dodgers can kind of be like, all right, we have this guy that we can roll with, whereas the Rangers, I think they gave the kid a shot, and I'm saying kid relatively. Skenes is 21, Jack Leiter's 24, so there's 3 years difference there, where if Skenes comes up and gets shellacked, and they need to kind of reassess, and all of this hype that we're bestowing upon him is kind of unfounded for where it is right now, then they can kind of go back to the drawing board and see where there's issues and come with him again next year.
Yeah.
But I don't see it. Whereas there's too much that he does well in terms of locating his velocity, his deception. I don't want to like go full Enron, too big to fail types of proclamations, but I think he's a guy that it's even if there is a rough start to his time in the majors, he'll figure it out. And I don't
But
think there's going to be a extended run of futility.
but I think the difference between Leiter and Skenes is that the Rangers can hide his um his
Yeah,
you know what I mean? They can hide his shortcomings.
Jack Leiter wasn't coming in as the number one. He
Where
was
the
coming in as the
Pirates,
five, whereas Skeens is
where the
I
Pirates,
agree with you.
it's all or nothing.
But it is in the same regard. It's two highly touted prospects that were. I don't think Leiter had the red carpet rolled out for him the way that Skeens has, but he is a guy that is. I don't know. There's just not much in terms of expectations with him.
Yeah.
Hold on, we got you frozen a bit. Let me.
Yep.
I'm gonna pop you back on there. Oh,
Yep.
you're dark. All right, leaving. Out. Hold on. And of course, with everything I do, there's technical difficulties. I was the black box last week. Now Colin has taken the steed.
I have. I have.
All right.
I will be.
Well,
I
we're,
will.
well, we're towards the end, so we'll just
Yeah.
make you a nebulous blob sitting on the
Yeah. We'll
river
make it. We'll make it audio.
on Paul Skenes'.
We'll make it audio. Yeah.
Yeah. What a poignant way to go out with
Yeah.
just.
Yep.
And full disclosure, before things started, my my feed crapped out, and I had to go back and restart everything before we got going. So this is just going to be that habitually cursed stream, but it's one that we love.
Yes.
And it's gonna be great.
It wouldn't be our podcast if we didn't have some kind of technological issue.
Yeah. But on that final note, once again reiterate tomorrow, if you would like to see this person that we've been talking about for the better part of 45 minutes to an hour, you can go on to MLB.TV and you can stream it for free. It's going to be the 4:05 first pitch. Yeah, against the Cubs. It's a home game. They're going to really just roll out the red carpet for him in front of the home crowd. I hope it's a packed house. I really hope if there's going to be so many people tuning into this, it's not a half empty crowd for this, because that would really put a damper on the proceedings.
Well, hey, so good point.
Oh, I lost him entirely. That's fun. We'll give him a minute to come back and tell me what the good point was, because I always enjoy being told I said something correct for every time in my life that I am told I said something incorrectly. So you got to have that balance a little bit. And I guess as let me see what time the Mets play tomorrow, because this could be an appetizer for the Paul Skenes thing to go see Christian Scott versus the Braves. As I beatbox to nothing. There's nothing but killing of time at the end of the stream. And My internet is being wonky and won't let me. All right. We're just gonna close things up. He can't get back in. I can't pull up the schedule. We're sitting in the cursed times. All right. So it is the appetizer. Go watch you some Christian Scott before you watch yourself some Paul Skenes. This has been yet another cursed episode of Opposite Field. Thank you everybody for coming through. We'll the goal is to be back at, and so it's a second course, and we're hopefully going to be back on Thursday next week. If not, we'll see if Friday works again. We'll be on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, and everything. Oh, do we have him back in for the farewell? I was closing up. Can you hear me?
I'm back.
Hey, all right. Just in time to say goodbye to the people. All right. In finale, this has been episode 64 of Opposite Field. I've been Trevor. This has been Colin. Our internet has been horrible, but we love y'all, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Bye.